Hollywood earthquake just detonated online, and it features three of the industry's most elite icons. Keith Urban has finally ditched his filter regarding the toxic feud between Nicole Kidman and Naomi Watts, and his outburst is currently nuking social media. For the viral tea and messy insider leaks, Keith was pushed past his breaking point after witnessing the absolute insanity between his ex and her supposed ride or die. Ditching his trademark, supportive husband vibe, sources swear he snapped with pure vitriol, allegedly venting, "They've lost it." That single quote has officially set every fan forum and gossip page on fire. Everyone is desperate to figure out what went down behind the velvet rope to make Keith get that nasty. Is this a fresh spat, or has the Nicole and Naomi bond officially hit a dead end? As the gossip peaks, one reality remains. The vibe check between these three legends just shifted in a way nobody predicted. And the mess is only starting to leak. What did Keith actually witness that triggered his total snap? And why is a 30-year bond suddenly dying under the pressure of shady legal invoices and messy public fights? Don't go anywhere, because we're exposing the entire catastrophe. The drama trapping Nicole Kidman and Naomi Watts has evolved past a basic celebrity tiff and into a total Hollywood psychological collapse. To grasp the weight of why Keith Urban would claim they've gone crazy, you need to see the massive scale of the madness happening backstage. We are witnessing a sisterhood that lasted over 3 decades through Oscar glory and brutal divorces, now being gutted by a string of unhinged and chaotic episodes. Per the deepest industry snitches, this beef didn't just appear. It was a slow-motion car crash of bitterness that finally exploded during a beyond awkward showdown that left the entire room paralyzed. This isn't a case of two divas having a tantrum. This is the total structural failure of a bond the world swore was bulletproof. The sheer aggression of these leaks proves the rage and chaos between them is so bad that even their inner circles are ghosting. Veterans who've spent years on their payroll are apparently horrified by the vibe shift, calling the whole scene radioactive and erratic. It's the brand of scandal that begins as a mumble and finishes as a roar. And trust us, the business is hearing that roar perfectly. The drama pivots on a chain of alleged secret fights that were the opposite of classy. For decades, Nicole Kidman was the literal definition of chilling poise and expensive grace, while Naomi Watts played the down-to-earth, reliable sidekick. But that PR mask is being shredded by fresh allegations of ego trips and money wars that started years ago. The heart of the rot supposedly comes from a huge investigative audit into secret business deals and legal contracts that were meant to be buried forever. If you track their history, these stars have always kept their skeletons locked far away from the hungry tabloid vultures. Yet, something has broken in the way they are treating each other in front of everyone. The lie of the perfect Hollywood bestie is shattering, and what's spilling out is a story of backstabbing, pride, and enormous piles of cash being laundered. We're hearing about hacked emails and vicious phone calls where the insults were allegedly so brutal they'd make a writer cringe. This is the nightmare that Keith Urban was apparently forced to witness. And that explains why his reaction was so visceral. He wasn't just reacting to a small argument. He was reacting to the total collapse of a dynamic that has defined his social circle for nearly 2 decades. What makes this even more scandalous is the historical context of their relationship. Nicole Kidman and Naomi Watts have always been seen as a united front, but insiders are now pointing to past incidents where the competition between the two was allegedly much more cutthroat than they let on. There are rumors of roles being stolen, endorsements being intercepted, and a constant undercurrent of one-upmanship that finally exploded into the public eye. When you add the layer of Keith Urban's recent separation from Nicole into the mix, the situation becomes even more volatile. Keith has reportedly been trying to navigate his own post-divorce life with some semblance of dignity, but he keeps getting pulled back into the orbit of this feud. The reports suggest that he found himself in the middle of a screaming match that involved accusations of character assassination and professional sabotage. Imagine being one of the most successful country singers in the world and having to spend your private time mediating a battle between two of the most powerful women in cinema who are allegedly acting like teenagers in a high school hallway. It is no wonder the phrase "they've lost it" was supposedly uttered. It is a reflection of a situation that has lost all touch with reality and has entered a phase of pure, unadulterated drama. The build-up to this specific explosion has been documented by those who pay close attention to the subtle shifts in Hollywood power dynamics. Over the last 6 months, there have been noticeably fewer joint appearances, a lack of social media interaction, and a coldness that was hard to ignore if you knew where to look. But the general public was kept in the dark until the legal bills started piling up. There are reports of a massive financial audit being triggered by one side against the other, involving millions of dollars in shared investments and property. In the world of the ultra-rich, nothing causes a rift quite like a dispute over the bottom line. The investigative findings circulating in certain circles suggest that there were discrepancies in how certain funds were being handled, leading to a direct accusation of financial mismanagement. This isn't just about hurt feelings. This is about the kind of money that changes lives and ends careers. When the numbers don't add up and the trust is gone, there is nowhere left to go but to the lawyers. And that is exactly as the news of this internal war began to leak out. The public reaction was one of pure disbelief. How could the two best friends of Hollywood be at each other's throats? But as more details emerged about the alleged abuse of power and the way they were reportedly treating their staff during this crisis, the tide of public opinion began to turn. There are claims that assistants were being forced to sign non-disclosure agreements, specifically targeting the details of this feud, and that the workplace environment for those caught in the middle has become unbearable. The sensational nature of these reports is exactly what has fueled the viral fire. Everyone craves a brutal fall from grace, and watching two supposed icons of industry class allegedly sink into this brand of petty, scorched earth behavior is the ultimate dopamine hit. But for those trapped inside, it is a very real and very expensive nightmare. The leaks regarding lavish spending on private investigators to excavate dirt on one another are particularly repulsive. We are talking about thousands of dollars a day being burned just to find a way to trash a former best friend. It is a level of obsession that proves the emotional stakes are just as high as the financial ones. The sheer volume of leaked intel is unprecedented for stars of this caliber. It suggests that someone very high up in their inner circle has decided that enough is enough and is feeding the narrative to the press. Every new report seems to confirm that the situation is getting worse, not better. There is a sense that the bridges haven't just been burned, they've been nuked. And in the middle of it all is Keith Urban, the man who arguably knows the most about what is actually going on. His alleged frustration is the most honest thing about this entire scandal. It provides a human element to a story that often feels like a manufactured movie plot. When a man like Keith, who has built his reputation on being steady and reliable, throws his hands up in the air, you know the situation has gone off the rails. The mystery of what exactly triggered his final outburst is the question that everyone is trying to answer. Was it a specific document, a specific phone call, or just the cumulative weight of months of insanity? As the first part of this investigation comes to a close, the focus shifts from the why to the how. How did it get this bad? And how deep do the secrets actually go? The deeper you look into the financial records and the private communications, the more it becomes clear that we are only scratching the surface of a much larger and much darker story that is about to move into an even more explosive phase. The transition from hidden resentment to public fallout became undeniable when the first wave of financial documents was reportedly leaked to a small group of high-stakes investigative journalists. As we move into this second phase of the crisis, the focus shifts from emotional outbursts to the cold and calculated world of forensic accounting and backroom betrayals. The enigma of those legal invoices that Keith Urban allegedly found so stomach-turning finally made sense once the massive scale of the disputed numbers went public. Per sources embedded in the audit, we aren't just discussing a few thousand in boring administrative fees. We're staring at a discrepancy involving nearly $15 million linked to a joint lifestyle and wellness brand that the two actresses had been quietly building for years. The leaks claim that one side was allegedly siphoning cash into private offshore accounts to bankroll a separate unapproved project, leaving the other side to foot the bill for mounting operational costs. When the invoices finally hit the desks of the legal teams, the explosion was guaranteed. This wasn't some simple misunderstanding. This was a systematic drain of capital that turned a business partnership into a crime scene of corporate gluttony. The investigative findings further suggest that the abuse of power wasn't restricted to financial fraud. Anonymous snitches from within their joint production office have detailed a culture of terror that took hold as the bond between the two stars rotted. Employees were reportedly split into camps, forced to stalk colleagues, and report back every private conversation they caught. There are even whispers that private security was hired to monitor the digital footprints of staff members to ensure that nobody was leaking the details of the internal war. The level of corruption being detailed is absolutely staggering. Imagine a workplace where your bosses are two of the most famous women on earth. Yet the atmosphere is more like a maximum security prison than a creative studio. One former employee speaking under the seal of total anonymity claimed that the tension was so thick you felt it the second you walked through the door. They described scenes of one star tossing expensive gifts from the other into the garbage and deliberate attempts to wreck each other's schedules so they would miss crucial industry meetings. It was a calculated campaign to execute the other's professional reputation while maintaining a fake smile for the paparazzi. As the public started to catch wind of these leaked files, the social media vibe shifted from curiosity to pure outrage. The image of the loyal, supportive Hollywood sisterhood was being replaced by the reality of two incredibly wealthy narcissists using their influence to crush anyone in their path. The "they've lost it" comment from Keith Urban took on a new life as it became a viral hashtag used by thousands to mock the insanity of the situation. Public forums were flooded with people questioning how legends with so much could be so incredibly petty. The lavish spending mentioned in the probe was a particular point of anger. While their legal teams were warring over millions, reports emerged of both women burning hundreds of thousands of dollars on stress management retreats and private jets just to avoid being in the same zip code as one another. This display of extreme wealth used for the sole purpose of maintaining a feud did not sit well with an audience struggling with a real-world economic crisis. The irony of two women who built their brands on being relatable and real, acting like warring monarchs, was not lost on anyone. The corruption allegedly extended into the way they handled their public relations. Investigative data suggests that both camps were paying prominent gossip columnists and social media influencers to plant negative stories about the other side. This was a manufactured war of information where the truth was the first casualty. We're talking about invoices that show massive payments to reputation management firms whose only job was to ensure that the other person looked like the aggressor. One leaked memo allegedly detailed a plan to leak a story about a secret health crisis just to make the other side look insensitive if they continued their legal pursuit. The level of tactical manipulation is something you usually see in political campaigns, not between two people who used to share vacations and birthday parties. It shows a level of coldness that shocked even the most cynical industry insiders. Keith Urban's alleged reaction wasn't just about the fighting. It was about the realization that the people he thought he knew were capable of such deep, calculated deception. The fallout from these revelations began to affect their professional standing almost immediately. Several high-profile brands that had endorsement deals with both women reportedly went into emergency meetings to discuss morality clauses in their contracts. No luxury brand wants to be associated with a scandal involving offshore accounts and staff abuse. The financial stakes shifted from a private dispute to a potential loss of future income totaling in the tens of millions. This is where the panic truly set in. According to insiders, the tone of the legal communication shifted from aggressive to desperate. There were frantic attempts to bury the lead and silence the whistleblowers, but it was too late. The momentum of the scandal had become its own force. Every attempt to cover up a lie only created 3 more questions. The investigation uncovered that the more they tried to control the narrative, the more the truth slipped through their fingers. The corruption was too deep, the paper trail was too long, and the number of disgruntled former employees was too high. By the time the audit reached its final stages, the evidence of mismanagement was overwhelming. There were reports of ghost employees on the payroll, people who didn't exist but were receiving 6-figure salaries that were being kicked back into private accounts. This was white-collar crime being committed in the middle of a Hollywood friendship. When Keith Urban reportedly saw the breakdown of these costs, he realized that he had been indirectly funding a portion of this chaos through shared accounts during the final months of his marriage. The anger he felt wasn't just on behalf of the public or the staff. It was personal. He had been played just as much as everyone else. The realization that his name was being associated with this level of financial and professional rot was the moment he reportedly decided to wash his hands of the entire situation. His "they've lost it" remark was a signal to the world that he was no longer part of the circus. As the second part of this investigation closes, the legal threats have turned into actual filings. The quiet mediation sessions have been replaced by loud public court appearances and a media circus that shows no signs of slowing down. The consequences are no longer hypothetical. We are seeing the total destruction of two of the most carefully crafted public images in history. But as one door closes, another opens, and the rumors of a third party being involved in the financial drain have started to surface. Was there a hidden architect behind this war? Someone who stood to gain from the total collapse of the Nicole and Naomi empire. The investigation is now turning its eyes toward the mysterious consultants who were brought in to manage the joint venture just months before the explosion. As the documents continue to be analyzed, the trail is leading toward an even bigger revelation that involves international interests and a level of calculated sabotage that makes the initial fighting look like child's play. The stage is now set for the final fallout, where the true cost of this betrayal will finally be tallied, and the survivors will be forced to answer for the chaos they unleashed. The investigation into the mysterious consultants led to a trail of shell companies and digital footprints that point toward a much larger conspiracy. As we enter this final phase of the fallout, the consequences are no longer just professional or financial. They have become systemic. The discovery of these third-party architects has added a layer of darkness to the Nicole and Naomi saga that even the most seasoned industry experts didn't see coming. These weren't just business advisors. They were reportedly specialists in high-stakes corporate sabotage brought in during a moment of vulnerability to ensure that the joint venture would fail in a way that benefited a hidden group of international investors. The legal teams for both Kidman and Watts are now facing a reality where their clients might have been manipulated into fighting each other while their shared empire was being hollowed out from the inside. This bombshell has officially transformed that "they've lost it" jab from Keith Urban into a terrifying prophecy. He wasn't just watching two besties bicker. He was watching two legends being systematically gutted by predators they didn't even notice in the room. The radioactive fallout is now slamming the highest levels of industry power. Reports are exploding regarding a formal federal probe into the offshore stashes and the fake employee payroll exposed during the first audit. We're looking at potential felony charges including tax evasion, money laundering, and massive wire fraud. This is the absolute nightmare scenario that keeps every high-powered Hollywood agent screaming into their pillows. The collapse isn't just restricted to Nicole and Naomi. It is threatening to suck in every executive, lawyer, and manager who greenlit these deals over the past 3 years. Anonymous snitches claim that multiple high-ranking studio bosses have already been slapped with subpoenas to testify about what they knew regarding the joint venture's shady finances. The vibe in Los Angeles is one of total, unadulterated panic. The rot was so deeply woven into the daily grind of these production houses that pulling a single thread is about to shred the entire tapestry of Hollywood's elite social circle. As the feds tighten the net, the public rage has reached a literal fever pitch. There are massive calls to boycott any upcoming projects involving anyone even remotely linked to the scandal. The once worshipped stars are now being paraded as the ultimate examples of everything wrong with the untouchable celebrity elite. Angry protests have erupted outside major talent agencies, with people screaming for transparency and blood over the alleged staff abuse and the theft of millions. The irony here is that the harder the legal teams scramble to shield their clients, the more the public views it as a neon sign of guilt. Every robotic statement dropped by their PR firms is met with instant mockery and a tidal wave of toxic social media hate. "They've lost it" hashtag has now mutated into a global movement questioning the basic ethics of the entire entertainment business. The death of this legendary bond has become the spark for a desperate conversation about power, greed, and the hidden price of fame. The financial bloodbath triggered by the audit has already started claiming victims. Several smaller production companies partnered with the joint venture have already declared bankruptcy. Unable to survive the asset freezes and the total death of their credibility, hundreds of innocent crew members and office staffers have lost their livelihoods because of a war they didn't start. This human cost is exactly what is driving the most violent public anger. While the stars hide away in their multi-million-dollar bunkers, the people who actually built their sets and organized their lives are left to scavenge through the wreckage of their careers. Whispers are exploding about a massive class action lawsuit being prepped by furious former employees seeking millions in damages for the toxic workplace and the brutal termination of their contracts. This legal nightmare is expected to grind on for years, ensuring the names Kidman and Watts remain synonymous with scandal for the foreseeable future. In the dead center of this disaster, Keith Urban has reportedly made his final move to sprint away from the wreckage. Sources claim he has officially severed all remaining financial ties with Nicole, swallowing a massive loss just to ensure he is no longer legally or financially tethered to the entities under federal heat. His focus has pivoted entirely to his music and his daughters, and he has reportedly slapped a strict no comment muzzle on his entire team regarding his ex-wife's meltdown. But despite his silence, the impact of his original outburst continues to dictate the narrative. He gave the public the perfect lens to view this catastrophe as a moment of total psychological and professional suicide. His alleged frustration acted as the final nail in the coffin, confirming what we were seeing was reality, not just tabloid trash. The mystery of the hidden architect remains the ultimate unanswered question. While the consultants have been doxxed, the person or group who actually hired them stays in the shadows. Some believe it was a rival studio looking to murder the competition, while others hint it was an inside job by someone within the legal teams themselves. This lingering question is exactly what is keeping the fire of this investigation alive. Until the puppet master pulling the strings is dragged into the light, there can be no true closure for anyone involved. The hunt for the truth has become a total obsession for investigative hacks and online sleuths alike, with wild new theories surfacing every hour. The level of detail being dug up is haunting. From encrypted burner messages to secret meetings in European capitals, the story has mutated from a petty Hollywood feud into a global financial thriller. As the dust finally starts to settle on the initial blast, the grim reality of the situation is starting to sink in. Nicole Kidman and Naomi'S may never bounce back from this. Their names, once the gold standard for elegance and loyalty, are now forever stained by corruption and betrayal. The new chapter mentioned at the start of this probe has turned into a tragedy of epic proportions. The consequences are lethal, the damage is permanent, and the truth is way more twisted than anyone imagined. The fallout is a brutal reminder that in the world of high-stakes fame, nothing is what it seems. Behind every Botox smile and every red carpet walk, there are layers of rot and darkness the public never sees until it's too late. Now we are left with the final pieces of the puzzle. The court dates are locked, the investigations are surging, and the world is paralyzed waiting for the next bombshell. Every fresh document that leaks and every new snitch that emerges adds another toxic layer to this unbelievable saga. The mystery of what actually went down when the cameras stopped rolling is finally being exposed. One scandalous detail at a time. The truth is surfacing, and it is more nauseating than anyone could have predicted. Which brings us to the ultimate question of this breakdown. After seeing the scale of the rot, the financial fraud, and the total execution of a 30-year sisterhood, who do you think is the real villain in this nightmare? Is it the stars themselves who let their massive egos and greed incinerate everything they built? Is it the shadowy consultants who preyed on their vulnerability for a paycheck? Or is it the industry itself, which allows this level of secrecy and corruption to rot in the dark? The evidence is all there, but the final verdict is yours. Scream your thoughts in the comments below, because this is a tragedy that affects everyone who buys into the Hollywood dream. This investigation is far from over, and your take is part of the hunt for the truth. If you want to stay ahead of every new leak in this massive scandal, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe to the channel. We are hunting the paper trail to the bitter end, and the next update is going to be the most explosive one yet. Remember, in Hollywood, the image you see is never the full reality. The real horror is always what happens when the studio lights go out. The enigma of the legal bills, the alleged offshore stashes, and that chilling "they've lost it" remark from Keith Urban has opened a door that can never be shut again. We are watching the total demolition of a Hollywood dynasty in real time. And every new document drop suggests that the worst is still lurking in the shadows. But now the spotlight is on you. After seeing the scale of this alleged financial backstabbing and the death of a 30-year bond, who do you think is truly pulling the strings backstage? Do you believe Nicole and Naomi are victims of a massive corporate hit? Or is this just the inevitable end for a friendship built on Hollywood vanity? And what about Keith? Was he smart to flee the wreckage? Or does he know way more about these hidden architects than he's letting on?